UFC 306, The Sphere, O'Malley versus Dvalishvili takes place this weekend, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card. And oh my god, what a monumental once-in-a-lifetime card this is. I've never seen anything as stacked as this before. I'm going to start with the early prelim opener of Raul Rosas Jr. versus Aori Qileng. Actually a decent one. Raul Rosas Jr. is a prospect in the sport. Had a little bit of a setback against Christian Rodriguez, but Christian Rodriguez can be a problem, especially at 135 when he misses weight by 5 pounds and has a weight advantage over all of them. At 145, he hasn't had as much success, where he can't, just weight bully everyone. But Raul Rosas Jr., C-Rod's a good fighter, very technical, very well trained, out of a good gym. Duke Rufus is his trainer, the Pettis brothers. They've brought up some good guys before. Raul Rosas Jr., I think he's going to beat Aori Qileng. Little bit of a layup for him, and I understand it. Aori Qileng is dangerous and he is powerful. Just because he's of Mexican heritage, I don't think we're going to be looking at a chin problem. Now, also by the look of his chin, don't think we're going to be looking at a chin problem from Raul Rosas Jr. The guy turns to the side. He looks like a fucking half crescent moon. Looks like a DreamWorks fisherman's about to sit on the tip of it and go fishing in a cloud. You know what I mean? So I'm going to go with Aori Qileng losing this one by being out grappled. We've seen Aori Qileng lose to some fighters that I wouldn't even really describe as extremely talented. 25-11. It's a tough one, isn't it? It really is a tough one. Johnny Munoz Jr., he got a win over. Lost to Daniel Marcos, but it was an unintentional groin strike. But he was losing the fight anyway. And then Jay Perrin, I don't rate him. Cameron Else, I don't rate him. Durden beat up on him. Jeff Molina beat him up as well. That was at 125. Chin a little bit more sus there, but Amy and Zahabi put him away not that long ago. I'm just seeing too many losses too frequently. I need another rising prospect to give Raul Rosas Jr. problems. Like if he was going up against a Montel Jackson, who's a rising prospect with a ton of experience, I'd feel some type of way about it. Maybe if he fought one of the Basharat bros, I'd feel some type of way about it. Maybe if he fought another one of these prospects coming up at bantamweight like a Peyton Tabit, maybe then that's where you pick against him. But against these types of opponents, I think you can trust in Raul Rosas Jr. to go out there and maybe chin him, but also probably get the grappling going early and put that relentless pace on him and get the submission win. First or second round for Raul Rosas Jr. I'm going with him to get the job done. Meep, meep. We move on. Up the card. Edgar Chairez versus Joshua Van. Again, I'm going to need a slightly better level of opponent to beat Joshua Van. Now, Charles Johnson is good. You know what I mean? He gives close fights to tough guys. He beats some decent guys in a division, but often has a setback that just prevents him from getting into those rankings that seem to have eluded him his entire career. This is a 2-month turnaround since the KO from Charles Johnson. I don't like that, but Edgar Chairez ain't really a guy with like huge knockout power. He has some finishes early in his career, but he's more of like a submission guy. He has submission armbar. He got a submission in his second fight. He has another armbar finish, a rear naked choke finish. Finished a guy with a body kick once. Other than that, I'm seeing a KO finish with a punch. And other than that, it was a flying knee in his debut. And it's just not against the same level of competition. So, I'm going to go with him not beating Joshua Van. I don't see Joshua Van getting submitted here. I think it's going to be a stand-up fight. And I think if it is, I'll go with Joshua Van getting this one done. Plus, something that makes me sort of more okay with the quick turnaround after being KO'd is the fact that he is very small flyweight, so he's not really a guy that drains himself to make the division. You know what I mean? So I'll actually go over Joshua Van decision here. A little bit more of a patient approach, sort of see out that first round, get the explosiveness out of the way, and then start working into the fight in the second and third. So I'll go Joshua Van. Joshua Van getting this one by decision. I like that he doesn't have to weight drain. You know what I mean? This isn't... who was another example I used of this? There was a fighter that got KO'd that then moved down a division. And it was just like, what are you doing? You're going to get chinned. And it was a worrying one. So, but yeah, I'm going to go with this. I justified it with Pereira as well. Remember, he got KO'd by Adesanya and then he moved up to fight Jan Blachowicz, an even more powerful striker than Israel Adesanya. And I was like, well, he's not going to do the same level of weight cut. So it's not like the brain's going to be under that much pressure and he has to go through that, central nervous system trauma of a weight cut again. So I'm going to go Joshua Van. We move on. Yazmin Jaregui versus, I believe her name is Ketlen Souza. There you go. I'm going to go Yazmin Jaregui. Other than her loss where she got chinned not that long ago by Denise Gomez, who is just, you know, sometimes skill can only take you so far in the sport, especially in women's MMA. Sometimes you just got to be headman. You know what I'm saying? Yazmin Jaregui will get this one done. She's a way more technical fighter. She was actually a really good prospect as well. You know, she bounced back after that loss, got a win. Maybe if she was coming off a KO loss, I wouldn't mind the idea of an upset here, but she got a win back, got it done. She's had good wins in the UFC. Lucindo, Nunes, Sam Hughes isn't that good, but she's beaten some decent. She's got some wins in the UFC, you know, she's not just someone losing all the time. She's fraud checked a couple of fighters, for example. I'm going to have to go with Yazmin Jaregui. A lot of hype behind her coming into the UFC, and take away her getting chinned by Denise Gomez, who does hit like a... I'm going to have to go with... Yazmin Jaregui here. We move on. Up the card. Manuel Torres versus Ignacio Bahamondes. Ooh, I'm going to go Manuel Torres, you know. There's a few performances in Ignacio Bahamondes' career where he's had a little bit of a stinker against people that... not a stinker, but he hasn't looked as good against a certain level of competition as I would need him to look in order to pick him against a Manuel Torres. And Manuel Torres on the other side is destroying everyone. You know what I mean? He destroyed Chris Duncan in the first round, got cracked, but cracked back, you know what I mean? And then got the rear naked choke in that fight from like throwing the guy down. Incredibly strong this guy is. He's kind of like, and I would describe him as this, he's kind of a lightweight Dricus du Plessis. Of course, it's not going to look the same because Dricus is a lot bigger than him, so it is going to look a little bit technically different. But the way he fights, his movement, the danger that's there at all times, the strength that he has to pull off some of these throws that aren't exactly like the typical takedowns that you would go for. I mean, he threw Duncan over the top of him from like a clinch position, and it was so weird looking, but he's just that strong. He's a physical freak, and I reckon Ignacio, with some of the performances he had, I'm going to go through them right now for you guys. Couple weird ones, you know what I mean? I'm looking at a win over Christos Giagos. He looked great. Giagos is an aging fighter. I'm not sure how much I rate that win, but he got it and he looked good. Fair play to him. Then I'm looking at a win over Trey Ogden. Technically beat Trey Ogden. Didn't really impress too much, but won it across the distance of the fight. Okay. Rongju beat him across the distance of the fight and then got a submission in the third round. Took him to the third. Roosevelt Roberts to the third round. This is some of the stuff that I'm looking at. I know this is a while ago now for him, but I'm looking at a loss to Ludwig Klein where he got taken down 3 times and held down for quite a bit in that fight. You know, 6 minutes of control time here for Ludwig Klein. And he had a good second round, but Klein picked it up in the first and third. And yeah, I'm going to have to go with Manuel Torres here. I just think he's looked more flawless against the same level of competition that Ignacio Bahamondes has looked somewhat mid against him in moments. Like John McDessie, old Canadian, hello, red flag, shouldn't have lost to him. Old Canadian, tiny as well for the division, incredibly short arms, and he was landing on Bahamondes, wobbling him in moments. And it was a while ago, I get it, but he was landing on him consistently with such a shorter reach. And I'm worried that Manuel Torres, who's a bigger dude, more imposing, more range, more power, more in his prime, faster, if he lands those shots, I know Bahamondes could have improved, but I'm not going to bet on an improvement. I'm going to bet on what we've seen. And I've seen Manuel Torres handle things so far in the UFC a lot easier. So I'll go with him to get this one done. We move on. Up the card. Irene Aldana versus Norma Dumont. Now, this is a tricky one because I do go back and forth here. Now, listen, I'm a big fan of Norma Dumont, guys, as you may be aware. But I kind of don't want to pick her to win. I feel like her featherweight stint was kind of like smurfing a little bit. I don't know if you guys are aware of that term, but it's kind of when you like fight a lower level of comp for a bit under the illusion. You know what I mean? You sort of like lower your level than you actually are just to get a few wins. But she is the underdog, so it is tempting. But I think I'm going to go Irene Aldana. I think she's just a little bit better than Norma Dumont. And I know that, what's her name? Macy Chasson is actually a pretty good women's fighter, MGK herself. But I'm going to have to go with Aldana. She looked a little bit better against Macy Chasson. I know Norma Dumont had moments as well, but she got held up against the cage a bit. And Aldana did catch her with that weird heel kick from on bottom position, but it's a tricky one, you know. I look for Aldana's career and I see a win over Carol Rosa. She's a capable, good women's bantamweight fighter. Nunes lost by decision, you know. Didn't really do too much in that fight. It is what it is. It's Amanda Nunes. Beat Macy Chasson. Beat Yana Kunitskaya. Decent win. Beat Ketlen Vieira. I think that's a pretty good win. She was undefeated at the time as well. Knocked her out. I'm looking at knockout power here. I'm seeing a bit of a difference there. Norma Dumont. She's good. Irene Aldana's going to have a bit of a reach advantage here. But Norma Dumont's... She also beat Carol Rosa. But then I'm seeing a 1-0 Danielle Wolf taken to a decision. Chelsea Chandler. They just beat Durandamy, but Durandamy had been out for so long, and that was a tricky one for her as well. Lost to Chasson, you know? I'm seeing Aldana with a bit more of a finishing potential advantage, especially at bantamweight. And Norma Dumont is a featherweight, and that bunda's going to prevent her ability to cut down appropriately to bantamweight in some ways. So I actually could see her getting chinned. She got put away by Megan Anderson. I could see her getting chinned here by Aldana. So if you want to maybe sprinkle some money on an Aldana KO, that would be maybe my recommendation. If you're okay with losing a bit and you only want to bet a tiny bit on a chance at winning potentially a lot, I don't know what Aldana by KO is going for, but I'm sure it'll be somewhat big because women's MMA betting by KO is not often a good bet. But I can see a chinning here by Aldana. She's got the power. She's got the lead hook for it. I can see her getting Norma Dumont, who does make some mistakes at times. We move on. Up the card, Ronaldo Rodriguez versus Ode Osbourne. I'm going to go Ronaldo Rodriguez. Ode Osbourne's just been beaten too many times for my liking. And Ronaldo Rodriguez is a consistent finisher and does have a bit of a following for himself on Instagram as well. Not worthy enough for a main card of a sphere, but he's had a couple viral TikToks. So that makes him on the main card of this monumental occasion. But he's beat some good opponents. I think Dennis Bondar is a sound flyweight. He hasn't had the most success, but I think he's a very technically sound flyweight. Yeah, he's had some good wins. You know what I mean? Beat consistent prospects, undefeated guy, 5-0. Lost to Jerome Rivera on the regional scene. I don't really like the look of that, but he's got finishing potential. And Ode Osbourne, you know, he's been put away a few times now at flyweight. You know, got submitted in his last fight. You know, we know Ronaldo Rodriguez has a lot of finishes by submission as well. I think he submitted his last opponent, Dennis Bondar, with a rear naked in the second round. Almabayev put him away in the second round. This is Ode Osbourne. Phil Ho put him away in the first with a rear naked. That's 2 rear nakeds in a row. You know, Ronaldo Rodriguez is coming off of a rear naked choke win. I don't mind the win over Charles Johnson, but I thought it was a robbery. I thought Charles Johnson clearly won the fight. Tyson Nam put this guy away. Nam's an aging fighter. Fighter. You know what I mean? So I'm going to have to go with Cap put him away in the first round. We see Cap go to splits with Felipe Dos Santos. You know what I mean? I wish Norma Dumont would go to splits with me, mate. I'll be telling you. But either way, I'm going to have to go with... over Ronaldo Rodriguez. Damn, we're like getting to the main card already. It really ain't anything on this, huh? No way there's 5 prelims. I've missed a few fights. Wow. There's 10 fights on this card. Moving on up the card. Daniel Zellhuber versus Esteban Ribovics. Now, this is a tricky one because Zellhuber is there to be hit at times, and Ribovics is dangerous as a prospect. Gonna go Daniel Zellhuber. He's good, man. I was watching back his last fight. The way he literally, I feel like to say this the right way. He fought in his last fight against Francisco Prado, who's good. I think he's pretty good. And he tamed him in that fight. Like, there was some danger where Prado would swing and get close, but he really shut him down as the taller opponent. And we're looking at a similar style here in Ribovics, who's a little taller, a little faster, a little bit more dynamic than Prado is. He's a little bit less of a Chandler-esque build for the division. You know, he's a little bit more dynamic, a little bit faster. I just don't think there's enough finishing consistency. I'm going to have to go with Daniel Zellhuber. And one of the other reasons is this is a big deal for me. Ribovics has a 69-inch reach. That's flyweight reach. That's women's reach. That's tough for me here. You know what I mean? I'm not liking the look of that, especially at 5'10". So he's not far off the height of Zellhuber, who's standing at 6'1". I think this guy's literally the tallest Mexican of all time. 77 inches of reach. Guy's got an 8-inch reach advantage over Esteban Ribovics here. And they're both good fighters. They're both training at good gyms, especially Zellhuber training at Extreme Couture. This guy's training at Alpha Team. You know, decent, but I'm going to trust in Extreme Couture. It's going to be a game plan heavy fight. He's trained by Eric Nixick. Good at game plan heavy strategy. Going to trust in that. Going to trust that he's looking to keep distance, not get too scrappy, pick his shots at range, try and go tit for tat. This ain't no Terrence McKinney who's just going to go out there and wail and 50-50 a gamble if he gets a KO or loses because he's mid. I reckon this is going to be a Zellhuber pick-apart fest with that 8-inch reach advantage at lightweight we're talking about here. We're not talking about heavyweight where you got a Tuivasa against like a John Jones or anything like that. We're talking about lightweight, 8 inches of difference in reach. It's going to be amplified because they're smaller. So the scale between the two of them is more similar. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to have to go with Daniel Zellhuber here. And he's had 2 good performances back-to-back. So I'm going to trust him to get this one done. We move on. Up the card to another fight, which is Brian Ortega versus Diego Lopes. I'm going to go Diego Lopes. I'm going to trust in the favorite here. Ortega, he can get it done. Now, if this was a 5-rounder, I actually would be like, how confident am I that Lopes is going to get a finish in this fight? Because it's a tricky one, you know? It really is a tricky one. So if it was a 5-rounder, I reckon, first of all, the odds would be a lot closer. But second of all, maybe I'd be more tempted to go with Ortega. But knowing that Lopes has 3 rounds, and Lopes knowing that he has 3 rounds. Remember, I know Ige stepped up, but so did Lopes for that fight. This is a full training camp fight. And Lopes had to make weight for this and then that. And he made weight like 3 times, I feel like. And then made weight up again for Dan Ige to step in. It was a real tricky one for Lopes to deal with, like in terms of a fight week. Chaos. This is going to be more controlled. I like that he's staying active. That tells me he had no injuries after the Dan Ige fight, or he's not taking this. You know what I mean? You don't step back. Like he took he's had moments where he's taken 5 months off, you know, between the Sabatini fight and the Youssef fight. And then he beat Youssef in April. Then he beat Ige in June. Now he's fighting in September. That tells me he's feeling good. This is a good year for him. He's healthy. I like that. I reckon he's going to get this one done over Ortega. I just think Ortega's a little bit too slow of a starter. So I think maybe Lopes ain't the guy who's a slouch on the ground like Yair is, you know, where if after the first round, by the way, that fight was at altitude as well, and Yair was like gassing from beating up on Ortega in the first. So I reckon Lopes is going to do better at dealing with a ground game if it eventually goes there. His takedown defense is going to be a lot better as well, I imagine. And I think his striking is going to be more consistent across 3 rounds than Yair Rodriguez, who relies on more chance. Lopes is scrappy. He's throwing punches that have a high success rate of landing. Yair does some goofy stuff now and again. Offbeat timing, wild stuff. And maybe it works. But I'm going to have to go with Diego Lopes here. Do I see maybe a tricky 3rd round at some point where Ortega has moments and the crowd kind of gets behind him? Maybe. I could also see a Diego Lopes finish. Ortega's taken a lot of damage in his career. I know that he didn't take a finish loss to Yair Rodriguez in his last fight. However, he did get chinned. You know what I mean? He has had 1 fight in 2 and a bit years. So, not liking it. Not liking it for Brian Ortega. I think Yair Rodriguez fight, he still took a lot of damage in that first round. Now he's coming back. He got pulled out of the Diego Lopes first fight for medical issues. Now he's stepping in for this one. I'm going to go Diego Lopes. I think he's more switched on as a fighter right now in his career, and I think the winner of this one should be looking to call out Volk. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see Volk inactive, step back in there against Danilia Tapuria if he beats Holloway. You know what I mean? Or we have to see Volk Holloway 4. Let's get some separation. Let's have Volk fight a contender. You know what I mean? I reckon the winner of this is probably looking at that, and I reckon that's going to be Diego Lopes. So that'd be a smart call out from him if he does it. Just think he's a little crisper than Ortega early on the feet. And I think he's got far better grappling and conditioning for grappling than Yair. And it's not at altitude. So, you know. It's not Mexico City altitude, is it? So I'm going to go Diego Lopes. We move on. And if it was, Lopes is used to it. He's an altitude guy. So, you know, he trains out of Mexico City. He's from there. So I'm going to go with him. We move on. Alexa Grasso versus Valentina Shevchenko. I'm going with Alexa Grasso. It's a near even fight. But I'll go Grasso. Shevchenko's just an aging fighter. Had her moment in the sun. I feel like maybe too much time in the sun, judging by that bottom lip. Either way, she's had her moments. You know, she's 36 now. Alexa Grasso, even though I thought she arguably could have lost that last fight, it's like Shevchenko had her chance in that second fight to get the win, but they were just hell-bent on robbing her. So they randomly gave Grasso a 10-8 round, one of the weakest 10-8 rounds in UFC history, which only seem to go to stars that they want to win, which I don't have a problem with, by the way, in women's MMA. Like, I'd rather the bigger names be in the championship fights, because otherwise we get Raquel Pennington. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I'm going to go with Alexa Grasso. I also believe that Shevchenko will be carrying a lot of negative energy into this compared to Grasso, because she's going to be real bitter about that last one. I can see it getting a bit heated in the press conference where she mentioned something about her getting robbed. Usually the fighter that comes in there with that attitude that they got robbed is a little bit emotional. And if it's an emotional fight and not a completely technical sound fight, I think it leads more into the chance of Grasso landing the shots where she can drop Shevchenko, where she can take advantage of a grappling situation. And yeah, I'm going to go with Alexa Grasso. I really am. I think she can capitalize more. I think she's the more improving. She's the younger fighter. She's coming into her prime. I mean, how old is Alexa Grasso? 31 to Shevchenko's 36. A little bit of a reach advantage. I'm going to go Alexa Grasso here. And I also think that, you know, there's just experience fighting a woman like Valentina Shevchenko. She was the top girl for a long time in the division, you know. So it's not like she was, oh my God, thank God I got that experience against Lauren Murphy. Maybe she'll get it against Grasso, but I think experience against high competition is more favorable for a younger fighter, no? So I'm going to go with Alexa Grasso. She was quite green when she first came into it, you know what I mean? Valentina Shevchenko, what's her record now? She's 23-4, not to mention all of the kickboxing matches and Muay Thai fights that she's had in her past. And then we're looking at Alexa Grasso, 16-3, pretty much only done MMA. I'm going to go with her, getting this one done. So, Alexa Grasso by decision, or maybe a late rounds finish with a choke after dropping Shevchenko at some point, because she still dropped Shevchenko in moments in that second fight as well. I'll go with Grasso getting this one done. We move on. Sean O'Malley versus Merab Dvalishvili. I'm going to go with Sean O'Malley over Merab. I'm going with Sean O'Malley. Now, Merab does have staph infection. I think that's pretty clear, which is a problem because Merab's main weapon is his gas tank. And if he doesn't have that, what does Merab do? He's not outclassing people on the feet to where he chins them. You know, he's not submitting people with his amazing jiu-jitsu. He's shooting takedowns and failing them and failing to control anyone with them. I mean, Pseudo, he did have a lot more control than usual, but typically we see Merab just spamming takedowns and they don't seem to lead anywhere. You know what I mean? He's not beating the hell out of people on the ground. He's not finishing people with wicked submissions. You know what I mean? He's not an Oliveira and he's not a vicious ground and he's not a Tito Ortiz, I guess, because he brought in the elbows from full guard, didn't he? He made that sort of mainstream. Either way, Sean O'Malley, I'm picking him to win this fight. Another reason is Merab, with his takedown spam heavy style. Cejudo's flat-footed in comparison to O'Malley. All of them are at bantamweight, other than maybe Sandhagen. But Sandhagen moves for nothing. You know what I mean? A lot of the time. Sandhagen does stance, switch, feint. And I'm like, you ain't landed anything. Like, do something. You know, Umar's winning. What are you doing? You know what I mean? But Merab, stationary opponents are where he does well. Cejudo's got to plant and try and land on him. He gets the takedowns on Cejudo eventually. After Cejudo wobbles him in the first with a left hook and gets him down in the first with a takedown and arguably wins the first round, or does win the first round. Then Yan, he's flat-footed in comparison. You know, he's a shelled-up guy. That's kind of what Merab would like as an opponent, you know? I'm seeing what Moraes did to him. I think O'Malley's a better shot selector. O'Malley's different on his feet, footwork-wise. We saw Aljo was able to spam takedowns against Peter Yan. We've seen Aljo able to spam takedowns against other opponents. But O'Malley didn't let him get there. Aljo wouldn't shoot because there wasn't a good shot for him in times. Like, he had moments where, O'Malley slipped and he got on him and he tried to take him down but failed. O'Malley's a little stronger than he looks. I think he's got a little bit of Leon Edwards takedown defense situation, so hopefully Merab doesn't play Bilal Muhammad here. But, Edwards is really good at isolating wrists and getting 2-on-1, and that's how he shut down Usman. I'm going to go Sean O'Malley. I think his footwork is better, harder to find good shots on, which gives him distance to then catch you making bad shots, which is something you don't want because his upwards knees to the face from standing is ridiculous. Ridiculous timing on those. Landed it on Marlon Vera, landed it on Peter Yan. These are educated strikers. I think that's going to be an option for him. I think the left hook is going to be an option for him. I think Merab is a hyper reactor to feints. If you watch a lot of his fights, when people feint at him, he goes a little jittery. And I think against O'Malley, he'll learn to chain something on, like a combination or a single shot after one of those feints. And I can just see him catching Merab early in this. Now, Merab could win. I'm going to go Sean O'Malley. I'm going to go Sean O'Malley by TKO in the first or second round, putting Merab away. And I'm going to tell you this as well. On top of the staph infection, the cut over his eye, that's definitely a factor that comes into this as well. O'Malley's going to open that up. It's on the eyelid. If that opens up any worse than it is, the fight is getting called off. And let me tell you why. They don't want Merab winning a 5-round grapple fest of nothing, skill-wise, but cardio against Sean O'Malley. They don't want that to end the sphere. Big night of fights. Maybe the rest of the card is fun. Few finishes here and there. Big main event to end. The big one. Everything's going into this. $16 million. Merab failing takedowns and just O'Malley having to stuff 50 of them and not being able to get strikes off. I'm going O'Malley, and they want him to win. They want him to win, so I'm telling you this right now. If they see that cut near his eye, it's getting called off. And let me tell you this again. If Merab gets hurt like he did against Moraes, the fight is off. He ain't getting given a chance like that against O'Malley. I'm not trying to say the UFC is going to be, corrupt, but watched O'Malley cheat 10 times against Yan. Ain't shit happened to him. No point deduction needed. They got him the win. It was a close fight, but I don't like the cheats. The hooking of the cage, the glove grabbing, the eye poke. They didn't take a point for anything that O'Malley did in that fight. I counted like 10 fouls that he committed. Just keeping it real, O'Malley. I don't care if you invited me on your podcast. You cheated in that fight a lot. So they let him get away with things. They do let him get away with things. Like they let McGregor get away with a few things against Khabib, And Herb Dean was just blind for a night. Weird, innit? So I reckon if Merab gets hurt like he did against Moraes, fight's getting called off. He ain't getting a chance to recover from that. Second of all, if he gets hurt like he did against Cejudo and wobbled, which is likely against O'Malley at some point here, right? If O'Malley lands a follow-up shot that drops him, I can see him just stepping in there as well, and Merab's recovery is going to bring him back up to his feet, but people are going to be like, no, I get why the ref jumped in, though, and other people are going to be like, early stoppage, and we're just going to forget about this. Don't be surprised. Do not be surprised if people are calling out an early stoppage. If he gets dropped and hurt by O'Malley in this big of an event where they need an O'Malley win because, the stars that they got now, Pereira ain't going to be around for much longer. They're going to look, when Jones is gone, all eyes are on O'Malley for the UFC, I feel like. Makhachev, I can see him retiring in a few fights. Bilal's 36 and no one cares about him. Pantoja's not going to bring any attention ever. Duplessis got big matchups based on the contenders in his division, and they can do the South Africa event, but I think they're going to be heavy focused on O'Malley. So, again, don't be surprised about an early stoppage. And I'm looking at this here. What's O'Malley's reach? He's got a reach advantage. Not crazy, though. Merab's actually got, he's not short arms for 5'6", but 68-inch reach, flyweight reach, women's reach. O'Malley's not 5'11". So I look at 5'11", I see a 72-inch reach, and I'm like, that should be a bit more like 74. You know what I mean? If I'm going to say this guy's got long arms. But he's not 5'11", is he? He's 5'9". At a push. He's 5'9" at a push because he was standing next to that NFL player. Can't remember his name. But the guy's like 5'10" or 5'9", and he was taller than O'Malley very noticeably, and they were in the same branded shoes. And then Pimlet stood next to O'Malley once, and Pimlet might be pushing 5'11" himself, and he was noticeably taller than O'Malley. So, the reach to height ratio is a little more impressive than it looks on paper for O'Malley because he's a lot shorter than he's listed at. And also one more thing about O'Malley. He's going to be improving. I think Merab's a complete package, and there's not much to improve upon that he can. I don't think Merab's ever going to, like, feint and counter someone nastily on the feet. But O'Malley can play catch-up on the ground game, and the more time he buys for himself, the better he's going to get. 29 years of age. You know, I mean, he ain't had much wear and tear. Got 4 years younger than Merab. Merab's 33. I like this for O'Malley. I do. And the guillotine. He's got a nasty guillotine. Merab shoots with his head on the outside a lot. Guess who don't have a nasty guillotine? Peter Yan. Yan don't really catch people coming in like that either. He's not a fadeaway like O'Malley did to Aljo type of guy. Yan's the type of guy to back you up, land consistently on you, and eventually one of his combinations are going to drop you. I'm going with O'Malley. This is a good style for him. And I think his takedown defense is kind of underrated as well. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle Pip. I'll see you later. And goodbye.